Hello and welcome back to 1874. It's time for our weekly podcast with myself, Dan Bardell, and the Athletics' Gregg Evans as we look back on Bournemouth 0, Aston Villa 1, a huge result in Villa's chase for Champions League football next season in the battle for the top five. And we're, of course, also going to talk about Ollie Watkins, record breaker. Finally, Gabby Agbonlahor isn't Aston Villa's record Premier League goal scorer. I'm so sorry, Gabby. And Ollie Watkins takes that crown now, 75 Premier League goals for Aston Villa. Greg and I are going to talk about him as well. This show is, as ever, sponsored by NordVPN, and you'll hear a little bit more about them later on in the show. As always, though, we will start with a book update from Greg, Waking the Giant. Greg, any further updates on last week?
Morning, Dan. Yeah, thanks for the continued plug of my book. I'd love to give you an update, but unfortunately, it's a really boring response. No, it's 1 week on. All the words are finally submitted now, which I said last week. So I can't add anything to it now, and it's ready to go. June 20th. June 20th, it's going to be released. So about 5-6 weeks away now. Looking forward to it.
Okay, and as ever, you'll see the QR code flash up at various points during the show. It's up there now, so if you're watching via YouTube, whether it be live or you're going back and watching us, you should be able to kind of hover your phone camera over the QR code and get some more information about Greg's book. And please order it. I'm sure it's going to be a sensational read, and I'm certainly looking forward to my free copy from Gregg Evans when the book comes out. Right then, Greg, absolutely huge weekend for Villa. Always difficult because Villa have won, which is obviously brilliant. You know, the last 2 weeks, I said on Rollo's podcast, Villa have navigated their two, what I think, most difficult games, 1-0, 6 absolutely huge points. Obviously, you've got all the other teams playing as well, and Newcastle played Chelsea yesterday and won, which I think they're pretty well set now for top 5. Manchester City surprisingly drew 0-0 at Southampton, a result I think that absolutely nobody saw coming at all. And then Forest kind of threw it away a little bit as well and only got a point against Leicester. But we keep looking at the table after the weekend, and we keep winning. We seem to never be in the top 5 still, but Villa are doing what they can at the moment. In all honesty, over this last couple of months, despite the Man City defeat, they've done pretty much everything they can league-wise to try and get into this top 5.
Yeah, it's incredible, really, isn't it? With Villa's form, the fact that they're still not in the top 5, it just shows how tight and how competitive this league is this year, and actually how poor Villa were prior to this good run of form. I think I underestimated it with 12 games to go. No, we're looking at 10 games to go, and I think I said Villa need half of those to be victories. And a friend of mine contacted me and he said, I think you've miscalculated this. Villa are going to probably need 7 or 8 minimum, maybe even more out of the final 10 games to go on and win. And look, he was right, I was wrong. And I think I did underestimate how difficult it was for Villa to get into the top 5 at that point. So they're doing pretty much everything that they can. The Man City result was a blow, but the results around it, Villa have just continued to win games. They've won 8 out of the last 10, haven't they? Yeah. So that's in the Premier League, which is really impressive considering they had an FA Cup campaign still ongoing as well as the Champions League. So the Villa have just got to simply just get the job done themselves. Still go and win the next 2 games. And I think that should get them in. Although saying that, I've been having a look at the league table last night, the day before, and this morning as well. And you look at it and you just think, well, Arsenal got Southampton in the last game of the season. So if they need something, they're probably going to get that, aren't they? Newcastle need 1 win out of the last 2. If Manchester City and Chelsea go and win both of their games, then Villa can't do anything then. So it is still out of their hands to an extent, but what tends to happen in these scenarios, and people often forget that, is teams just generally drop points, don't they? Not every team continues to win. So There's a lot that has to happen if Villa win their 2 games for Villa not to get into the top 5. And look, if you're a betting man or woman and you're worried about it, going back all the other teams to win, because it's very, very rare that all those results come in together. So I just think if Villa get 2 wins, that'll be enough for them.
Yeah, and there's no doubt, this was a huge result at the weekend. Another clean sheet. Tyrone Mings has played 14 Premier League games now, I think, and he hasn't lost a game. this season, which is, I know he didn't finish the game, but it's an absolute ridiculous stat, that, especially when you bear in mind his injuries that he had last season as well. But at this stage of the season, sometimes you're playing teams that aren't really bothered. They're on the beach, the season's over. They haven't got anything to play for. But I think the thing that's most impressive about Villa's last 2 wins for me is Fulham and Bournemouth have got eyes on Europe themselves. Massive for either of them to qualify for Europe. So Villa aren't winning games in the last couple of weeks by playing teams that are on the beach, although they might do it a little bit on Friday against Tottenham if things transpire the way I hope and think that they will. But Bournemouth away is a hell of a place to go. They're a really, really difficult team to play against. I thought Emery set Villa up really, really well in that they managed to combat the wide threat from Bournemouth, but they also managed to kind of suffocate them in the middle of the pitch as well, which is what Bournemouth actually like to do themselves. They were very narrow and compact when defending, but yet they still defended the wide areas really, really well. Bournemouth's only real chance came right at the death when Villa had 10 men because Jacob Ramsey had been sent off. So I just think all round it was a really, really impressive performance. Villa ended that first half excellently as well. Had a couple of chances. Kamara could have scored. Asensio hit the post. And then obviously Watkins eventually did score in stoppage time. But I just thought going away to Bournemouth as an away performance goes, it's up there as being perfect.
Yeah, and I think Villa made Bournemouth look very average, which,
Yeah.
over the course of the season, especially at home, Bournemouth have been very good. So to do that to them is, huge credit to the entire team, really, for stifling them, really. I think they just stopped them playing. As you say, were very compact at times. Took their chance when they needed to. And they had that really good period, I think, just before half-time where they started to sort of grind through the gears, and I thought, yeah, this looks like it's going to be a Villa victory because of the way that they were performing. But no, you're right. I mean, I think Fulham have slightly fallen off a little bit, haven't they? Bournemouth are still a threat, although the players that were performing really well in the middle of the season have dropped off a little bit. But that's not to take anything away from Villa. They went there with a plan and executed it.
Yeah, perfect plan up, I think, as well. You could see Villa kind of meant business from when we kicked off. Just want to single out a few players. One of them being Amadou Onana in the middle of the park. Arguably his best game in a Villa shirt. If you look at his metrics, they all come up really high. He was first in a lot of stats in that game. Also, I think if you look at the eye test as well, I was sat there thinking, Onana's been brilliant today. I think he'll be big next season. I think there's every chance he'll have a Tillerman's arc where his second season is better than his first. But he was really crucial to that victory against Bournemouth, Greg.
Strong performance. Thought he really physically imposed himself as well on the game, which I don't think we've seen enough from him. Guy of his size needs to go and dominate games more often. And look, he's been in and out with injuries and stuff, hasn't he? It's been a bit of a stuttering season for him. And I agree with you. Yeah, it probably will be better for him next season. The issue is, how often does he play? Where does he get in? Who does he come in for? Probably only plays because Tielemans doesn't he over the weekend? So
yeah.
Excuse me. So look, having a fit and firing Amadou Onana is going to be really important for Villa next season. I was surprised that McGinn didn't start.
Same. What, in the middle or just generally?
In general, yeah. I just thought big game like that, Villa needed to go and win. Yeah, he's played a lot of games, but just felt a little bit strange, really, not playing him when Tielemans didn't play either. So it just felt, what, you've already lost one of them. But look, it worked, didn't it? The midfield performed well, and they got the right balance. But it did surprise me at the start. I thought this could backfire, but fair play, Villa, and Emery knew what he was doing.
Yeah, that driving run in the first half, shades of Yaya Toure.
Yeah, and other players that sort of drive forward from midfield like that as well. I think he's very much his own man. I think that he, as I say, we need to see more of this of him using his strength and his physical abilities, because that's one of the reasons that Villa signed him, because he was tall, he was strong. They didn't have a midfielder, particularly like that. Yes, McGinn is tenacious and strong in a different type of way, but he isn't as tall, is he? So he doesn't win as many headers and things like that in the centre of the park at set pieces. But those driving runs we've seen at Everton, we've seen them when he was coming through in his younger years in France. So let's hope we can see a bit more of it for Villa.
No, I mean, we're certainly going to see it on Friday I think, because I don't think Tielemans will be back for Friday. Outside chance he'll be back for the last game against Manchester United, although it is
No,
highly unlikely.
we think he's out now for
Yeah,
the remainder of the for the next couple of weeks, which will effectively the whole season, isn't it? But it's only 2 weeks left.
yeah, and that makes the win a bit more impressive, doesn't it? Your player of the season, who's played every game this season, been a mainstay in the Premier League, 50+ games overall, he's not there, and you still go there and put in that type of performance.
I'd say yes and no, because yes, Tielemans has been brilliant for Villa, and sometimes it's tough to lose one of your best players. But the plan at the start of the season for Villa, and when you buy a £50 million player, he should be able to come in and make a difference.
Of course.
So I do think that the squad Villa have assembled over the last couple of years, especially with the summer recruitment this year's recruitment, Villa shouldn't ever really worry about losing the player, because they have got a squad good enough to for players to come in and fill in.
Do you think Villa got away with one early on in the game with the Tyrone Mings incident on Alex Scott? I mean, he's severely damaged his jaw, but I can't. Is it broken? Is it broken or dislocated?
Yeah, fractured. Yeah,
fractured jaw.
yeah.
So it's a bad injury. We saw Nicholas Jackson get sent off for Chelsea yesterday for something similar. Do you think? Whilst I don't think it was deliberate at all, I think he's trying to protect the ball, and I think there's obviously a massive size difference, and he's misjudged that. Do you think it's we're a little bit fortunate, because technically it is kind of dangerous play, isn't it?
It is, yeah, and I think I've looked back at this now in a couple of different angles, and the front facing angle looks pretty bad, doesn't it? Almost looks like he's held his elbow up there and has done it, not intentionally, but like he knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you look at the angle from behind, you can see Alex Scott come charging into Mings, and for me, it doesn't look like he has much time to react to it, almost like as if he didn't know that he was coming. So in that case, how can it then be intentional? So couple of different angles to look at it. I think that Mings is a wholehearted player. I don't think he's ever really lost touch of his sort of non-league, lower league days, whereas he always has to try and be very physically imposing and always has that in the back of his mind. I don't think he's a dirty player. Now, other people will argue with me here, and probably people that don't watch Villa very often, and they'll have seen some of these similar instances over years gone by, where Mings has perhaps got away with, in inverted commas, a potential red cards in the past. But there's always this same argument with Virgil van Dijk, that he gets away with a lot of red cards as well. Now, I just think it's that they're two very strong defenders who like to get stuck in. I know nonsense in some ways of their approach. So yeah, one, I wouldn't say he's a dirty player. Two, he's probably got a little bit fortunate in the fact that if that had been really carefully analysed in a different angle, he might have been red carded. Was Nicholas Jackson's any different or any worse? Probably not. But then at the same time, I honestly can't put forward a authoritative case to say that he did that on purpose, because the way I look at it from behind, Scott comes charging into it, and he didn't look like to me that he had enough time to understand what was going on. So how can it have been intentional?
No, it's difficult when the replays are kind of shown and it slows it down, and he has that look. It probably makes that look a bit more intentional because he's had that look, but he's not that type of player. In fairness, Alex Scott and him kind of embraced as well after the incident, didn't they? So I don't think there was anything. But I can see that if you're a Bournemouth fan, you're probably thinking might have been a red card.
Yeah, I suppose if you're looking at it from the other side, you're thinking, that could have easily been a red card as well. But I just think I don't know. It feels to me like he was almost protecting himself a little bit, or just trying to shield the ball or keep hold of the ball. And I mean, he's much taller, isn't he, than Alex Scott for starters? So the size difference doesn't help the angle. But yeah, I mean, as much as he's a no nonsense, wholehearted player, he's not a dirty player for me.
No. In conclusion, accidental. but maybe a little bit fortunate because I think it could be perceived as dangerous play. Yeah, but, overall though, I thought it was quite a dirty game. Anyway, and I thought Bournemouth in the first half, in particular, lots of niggly little fouls going on through that game, Greg.
Yeah, I don't mind that though. To be fair, I think it's
Not really
quite.
what
I
you
think it.
expect from Bournemouth v Villa, though, is it?
No, no, but I do. I don't think we see enough games like that anymore. I think it's all very soft. Lots of challenges that are getting pulled up. Thought the referee did okay at in some moments. Really let the game roll on at times. But yeah, I like to see a little bit more of that. I like the physical aspects of those games, and I think that generates an atmosphere amongst supporters. So I'm all for that, providing that players don't get injured and stuff.
Yeah. Let's talk about the goal then, Greg. As I mentioned earlier, Kamara forced a great save out of Kepa, double save in fact, because Cash had the rebound header as well. Asensio had hit the post. Villa had come into the ascendancy at the end of the first half and were looking really, really good. It's a lovely, lovely ball from Morgan Rogers. It's got Kevin De Bruyne slash David Beckham-esque from the right hand side. I'm still not massively a fan of him playing on that right hand side, but there's no doubting that his productivity. He's huge down that side so far in the last couple of weeks. Even though we're not maybe seeing the best of him on the eye test alone, it's a hell of a finish from Ollie Watkins, isn't it, Greg? Quite fitting as well for him to score a winner in a really, really important game that could help Villa sail Champions League football, because a lot of his goals have been important. A lot of his goals have been winners. And to hit 75 and overtake that record in such a crucial game with such a lovely finish as well, it about sums up Ollie Watkins' time at Villa for me.
A match made in heaven, hasn't it? Villa and Ollie Watkins. When
Yeah.
Villa signed Ollie Watkins, they told him, look, if you come to this club, we'll get you in the England team. You can score lots of goals. We'll play you regularly. And perhaps even the conversations at that time where if you really succeed at Villa, you might even get a bigger move, because you got to think where Villa were at that time. But no, Villa have looked after him, and he's looked after Aston Villa, as the records show. Great value for money. Another lovely finish. Jacob did a big piece in the Athletic today about Ollie Watkins, which is definitely worth a read for you guys who haven't seen it. Yeah, it just goes over a little bit of old ground, but also there's some nice graphs in there that explain and show how he's been outperforming himself, but at times underperforming. So it's just a good gauge of where he's been over his Villa career, which is quite useful. Some of those graphs are nice to view. But yeah, I just think good finish. I think he needed it. I was starting to worry about whether he would actually get over the line this season. And then there was always the concern of, does he move on in the summer without actually breaking that record? So the fact that he's done it will be great for him.
Yeah, we'll talk more about him in the kind of second part of the show after the ad break. But Villa negotiated the second half pretty well, I thought. Like I said, I don't think Bournemouth really created too much. I think that the big chance at the end was the kind of be all and end all really of their attacking threat, which is an incredible achievement from Villa given some of the attacking talent that Bournemouth have. First, the sending off, which obviously made it a difficult last 10-15 minutes or so. What did you make of Ramsey sending off?
A little bit soft, the second one, wasn't it? But
yeah, Iriola said that as well.
Yeah, sometimes you can't argue though. I suppose when you're on a booking, you've just got to be ultra careful now, because one little slip up and you sent off, aren't you? And I think unfortunately that's what happened with him.
Yeah, my thought is that it's a lesson, because the first booking is needless. You've done something silly. You've reacted. Okay, you're frustrated. You've been fouled, but don't put yourself in the position, because very easily he could have got sent off. And yes, the second yellow is soft, but I think once you're on a yellow, yeah, I mean, even if you're not, I think you get booked for that challenge in every game in the Premier League. I think there's consistency with that kind of thing. He could have cost us being down to 10. He will be a relieved man, because if Villa hadn't won that game and he'd have been sent off, I think he would have been taking a little bit of abuse, and I think he'd have been a little bit upset with himself.
Well, I think anyone in that position, if, whoever was the man that was sent off, if Villa had gone on to draw that game or lose, that person that was sent off would have taken some slack. So unfortunately for Ramsey, he got away with it in some ways, because Villa were good in the last 10 minutes. Yeah, they had and stoppage time. Yeah, they had Bournemouth had the opportunity where, goodness me, I mean, I can't believe they missed. Can you? That chance that must go down as one of the misses of the season. It was unbelievable. But yeah, other than that, Villa managed that game quite well, I think, in the last 10 minutes when they were down to 10 men. And they needed that. There's going to have been moments throughout these last sort of 12 games where they had to play differently, where they had to go for it at times, where they had to shut up shop. And they just managed the game really well. And I think some of the players that spoke after the game reflected that as well.
Yeah, the Martinez cash double save, there's kind of no doubting that. I think at the end of the season that might go down as a really critical moment. It's a hell of a save from Martinez, and it's a hell of a bit of defending from Matty Cash as well, isn't it?
Yeah, and just one on Martinez, because there's been a lot of talk about him in recent weeks about interest from Saudi Arabia, the fact that there has been debate amongst Villa supporters about whether they would let him, whether it's the time to move him on now and look for a younger replacement who can take Villa into the future. I would say yes, Villa should be looking at a younger potential replacement for the future, but Aston Villa cannot replace Emi Martinez at this moment in time. And I'm completely baffled and totally astonished by the reaction of some supporters who think that it would be a wise move to just let Martinez go without a fight. Because his form at times this season hasn't been at the very, very top level that it has been in previous years. I think his consistency perhaps is the difference this year. There have been a few moments where you can look back and think he should have done better there, where as in previous seasons, those moments were so few and far between. But he still pulled off so many important saves this season and protected a lot of points for Villa. And you forget really the just the authority and the dominance he has in goal, and that makes a huge difference to the defence and the rest of the team. There would have been players in that team who have perhaps moved on or are still there, who have varying opinions about Martinez and the character that he is. He's very demanding. We know that, and sometimes that might rub people up the wrong way. But what he's done performance-wise is brilliant for Villa, and you just can't replace that for me. I don't think.
No, for me, he's one of the last that you sell. You don't sell someone that you can't upgrade on. And I don't think Villa can go and get a better goalkeeper than Emi Martinez. Look at the problems they had with goalkeeper before Emi Martinez arrived. We had all sorts in goal.
And for so long, remember how long it was that the amount of goalkeepers that come in, and you just thought, even when Tom Heaton came in, and you thought, right, this is the guy that could perhaps really strengthen the goalkeeping department. He picked up that injury. He wasn't quite as good with his feet as the modern goalkeeper needs to be. So there were still question marks there as well.
Yeah, Martinez has been upgrading anything Villa have had for a long, long time, and long may it continue for me. I don't think you sell people you can't upgrade on. I also just don't think the Saudi thing is something that will interest Emi Martinez. He wants to play at the highest level, and the Saudi Arabian League is not that level. Right, we want to talk a little bit more about Ollie Watkins, but before we do, let's hear a little bit more from our sponsor. 1874 is proudly sponsored by NordVPN, so when you can't watch it, we want to help you. NordVPN is a secure and private service which works on pretty much any device, including your laptop, mobile, television. So if you want to watch some live content, it allows you to appear like you're in another country. And whilst you're connected, no one else can find out what you're doing, including your internet service provider. Beyond this, the service also has threat protection baked in to protect you from intrusive website ads and malware, which is pretty handy for you. As part of NordVPN support performance for free, this also includes Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. All you've got to do is go to 1874.io/NordVPN and sign up. All the details are also in the description. As always, we're very grateful to anyone that signs up. We know that money is tight, but if you think NordVPN will help you out, it will also help keep the channel running and help us too. Yeah, and thank you to NordVPN for their continued sponsorship. Apologies for my microphone. It's turning down its volume on its own through this show. I'm watching it just go whilst I talk. I don't know whether my microphone thinks that I'm too loud and just wants to turn it down itself, but I've got no idea what's going on, so I'll have to try and work that out. But apologies if it's causing any problems to the show. My volume fluctuating. Is it? You let me know in the chat now if this level's okay, because this seems to be the level my microphone wants to work at. So yeah, let me know in the chat if there's any issues with the volume I'm talking at. So Greg, back to Ollie Watkins. It's been 4 or 5 seasons now at Villa. He said he had his eyes on that record as soon as he came to the club. He's been a mainstay at the club for a long time now, under different managers as well, who've played in different ways. There's no doubt, that he's accelerated towards this record playing for Unai Emery. And it was a nice moment considering all the speculation around him at the moment, and him saying he was fuming with being out of the team, and maybe people talking about his relationship with Emery and how that is now. It was nice to see him and Damian Vidagani presenting with that 75 shirt, and all just seemed well again. And now I'm watching it thinking, that doesn't look like a man who's going to go in the summer.
No, look, there's a mutual respect there. Of course, there is. Again, Ollie Watkins has been good for Unai Emery. Unai Emery's also been very good for Ollie Watkins, because you think of where he was, under Steven Gerrard, that horrendous run of form that he was on, and what Emery did to try and get the best out of him. That will always be, Ollie Watkins will always remember that, because it was such an important period in his life, and he's kicked on from there. I think he has to obviously execute those instructions himself. He has to go out there and do it. There's only so much a manager can do. So,
yeah,
credit to him for scoring all those goals. I think look, he'll be really happy when he now. I remember that there's a chapter in my book when him and Matty Cash signed, and I won't go into too much detail because the book's out very soon. But let's just say they were absolutely delighted, those pair, to be joining Aston Villa, and that hasn't always been the case with every player. Players have come through at Villa and let's say coasted a little bit. When Ollie Watkins signed, he was absolutely buzzing to be joining Aston Villa, and to hear that from the people who put the deal together, was nice to hear. Really, it was warming in some ways. So to see what he's gone on and done now, he's great, and I just think I'd like to. Yeah, there's a few comments really saying that his season hasn't been at the level that he's set, in previous years. Still scored 16 goals, which isn't too bad, really. I would say in the Premier League, and considering the history that he's got as a goal scorer, there have been some misses, of course. There have been some bad games, of course, but he still scored 16 goals, which isn't too bad, and he's finally broken this record. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of credit in the bank for Ollie Watkins, really. And if he's had a season that isn't quite at his level, I think people should move on from that.
If you've had what's perceived as a bad season, you've scored 16 goals, then that tells you about the level of the last few years for me. I think his assist numbers probably haven't been near what they were last season this time round in terms of goal contributions overall. And I can sit here and say he's not been as good as he was over the season and a half before. I think there's been caveats towards it, and there's been reasons why. But I do remember hearing that Marcus Rashford had got injured, and whilst obviously not celebrating a Villa player getting injured, I did think might not be a bad thing, because it provides some clarity for Watkins for the last few games of the season, and it will give him a chance to break that record. And now he has broken it. These last 2 games, he could be the man that fires Villa into the Champions League again for next season, Greg.
Yeah, definitely. And look, he was hurting after not starting those PSG games and not starting some of the big games. He really wanted to be a part of it. And you think if you were the guy that scored most of the goals that got Villa to the Champions League, you deserve that big opportunity. And then to have a lone player who might not sign permanently take your place, it's quite frustrating, isn't it? So there's been some ups and downs. He sort of let Emery know his feelings about that, but now he's got the opportunity to go and get the goals that will get Villa in the Champions League again. So it's on him. He scored the vital goal against Bournemouth. Can he do it again against Man United and Tottenham?
Yeah, well, fingers crossed he can. He's a key player for Villa, no doubt. There's going to be speculation and noise around his future, and at the moment it's difficult to kind of gauge what's going to happen in the summer. Villa have got a PSR hole. They're going to have to kind of be clever again in the transfer market. We don't know what's going to happen with Marcus Rashford, and as it stands, we don't know what European competition Villa are going to be in next season. Although we do know they're going to be playing in Europe. What's your gut at the moment with Watkins next season?
difficult because I do stand by the fact that I struggle to see how Villa find a better player than him.
Same.
So first and foremost, so unless Villa can identify a striker who's going to come in and score more goals or have more of an impact in his position, I find it hard to think how they can get rid of him. I also think if Ollie Watkins does leave, that and he goes to Arsenal, for example, because I'm struggling to see where else he goes in the Premier
And
League.
that's not going to happen in the summer, the Arsenal interest. That was a January thing. That isn't going to be there in the summer.
Well, look, Arsenal need a striker, don't they? There's no hiding behind that. They need somebody they need a player who can finish off chances because they've had games this season where they've just needed somebody who could finish, and Ollie Watkins could have been that guy for them if he'd have moved in January. Do they go back in for him in the summer? Let's wait and see. But I don't know the details of that right now. But what I do also stand by is that if Ollie Watkins does move, he will score a lot of goals for the next team that he plays for as well.
Yeah.
And if you're Villa, you're looking back at that and thinking if he goes to a rival and scores the goals that fires that particular team above Villa, then it's going to be quite frustrating, isn't it? So, yeah, there's a lot to consider. Players do typically tend to move on as well. And look, he's hit the benchmark that he wanted to get to. He's got into the England team. He's position, even though Villa haven't signed Marcus Rashford yet, we don't know if they will do either. Probably depends on qualifying for the Champions League. Watkins' position is maybe the most fragile it has been for some years now, and all that might play into the fact that it might be the right time to move.
I mean, whatever happens, he's now in Villa's history books. Going to be a long way back for someone to break that record. We've seen how long it's been in place, so someone will go a long way to wipe Ollie Watkins' name out of the history books. And he's just been a brilliant signing for Villa. He's a brilliant footballer. He comes across as a really, really brilliant person as well, and someone who plays for Villa in the right way, I would say, as the stuff you talked about to do with your book earlier. I just think we'll miss him when he's not here. He has been an absolutely brilliant centre forward for Aston Villa, and whatever way you look at it now, I'm not saying he's the best striker to ever play for Villa in terms of ability, but in terms of goals now, he's Villa's best ever Premier League striker. So I think he can hold his head high. He should be really, really proud of what he's achieved, the way he's moved up through levels of the game as well to achieve what he's achieved, both with Villa and with England and with his other teams as well. I think we're lucky to have him, and I think he should be really, really proud of himself. And I don't think there's a better man to have as Villa's record Premier League goal scorer, and long may it continue. Let's hope he can stay and get towards 100 Premier League goals for Villa, because we haven't had I don't think we haven't had anyone get to 100 goals in the Premier League era. We've had people who've scored for Villa who are in the 100 club, but to have someone in the 100 club who just scored 100 goals for Villa, I think that would be a pretty special achievement. Right, Greg, let's wrap it up. I know you've got to go, and I've got something else in 10 minutes. You look like you might be going off to play golf.
No. I'm just wearing a golf shirt.
Oh, okay, my apologies.
Busy day today. Yeah.
I assumed there was some golf on the horizon because of the golf polo, but I was incorrect, and I apologise. One last shout out for Gregg's book. Do go and take a look at that. The information's in the description. The QR code's flashed up through the show. Waking the Giant by Gregg Evans and Matt Mayer. Also, check out our sponsors, NordVPN. That'll help you get a little bit of extra football in your life if you need it, whichever country you're based in. So it's definitely worth checking out NordVPN, and just say there'll be plenty of content through the week, so keep your eye on the channel and keep your eye on our socials, and you'll see when our content is coming out. If you've watched or are watching via YouTube, give the video a like and leave us a comment, and please subscribe with your post notifications on. That's really, really important. And via audio, if you could leave us a 5-star review and say something nice about us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, that would be absolutely splendid as well. It's very early, so you've got the rest of your days to enjoy, so I hope whatever you're doing, you enjoy it. And yeah, just keep your eye on the channel for the content for the rest of the week. And congratulations again to Ollie Watkins, Villa's record Premier League goal scorer. Only one thing even left.
Before you say that, Dan, can I butt in very, very quickly? Just guys, there's been quite a few comments in the channel that we haven't responded to. So apologies, we're just a tiny bit short on time this week, but next week we'll definitely answer more of your questions. So keep them coming, and apologies for not answering some of them.
Yeah, we'll get some more questions in next week, because I think we can probably do a show. The Spurs game's on a Friday, so I think we'll do a match reaction show at some point over that weekend, and then maybe Greg and I will just delve into some questions on a Monday. I think maybe that's the best way to carry it. So yeah, thank you everyone for your support. Keep cheering on the Villa. Keep